Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Roundtable Show. I've got a great panel of WordPress experts, other people, and I'm sure some of the panel will join us during the discussion. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with John. John, can you quickly introduce yourself?
Sure thing. My name's John Locke. My business is Lockdown Design, and I help manufacturers with SEO.
And we got Chris. Would you quickly like to introduce yourself, Chris?
My name's Chris Badgett. I'm the co-founder of Lifter LMS, which is a WordPress solution for making an online course membership site. I also have a podcast for course creators called LMS Cast.
And a very good one. He's got a new dog, folks, and he was ahead of a pack in Alaska as a sledge, and I made a stupid remark, and he put me down so sweetly. It was like a swipe across the face. Wake up, you idiot! There we go. Sally, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Sally Getch. My business is WP Fangirl. I build custom Genesis sites for growing businesses and nonprofits, and I'm the organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup in Oakland, California.
That's great, and it's a great meetup. Like I say, hopefully a couple of people might be joining us during the show. Let's start with the first one of my stories I've selected, and that's from the Tavern. WordPress theme review team launches a trusted author program. What do you think of this one, Sally?
Well, I saw the notice on make.wordpress.org because I subscribe to a lot of their updates, and I was thinking, I don't know if I'm sure about this. It just seems like it opens the doorway to something similar to that plugin purchase thing. Although as I think about it a little further, if it's the actual individual who is the author versus the theme itself that gets marked as trusted, then I think they probably do have a better chance of saying, well, this person has in the past submitted 5 themes or whatever that, followed the guidelines and so on. And it makes sense to fast track them because we trust their history. But, and of course, the efficiency of the theme review program has been an issue that they're, trying to automate more and make it so people don't have to wait as long. So I think it's one of those, well, let's try it and see if it helps things. Can't be sure whether it's going to improve stuff or not, and we'll just have to find out.
Yes. What do you reckon, John? What do you reckon?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting. The themes that are submitted, you have to have one theme already in the repo. You have to be 100% GPL with less than 3 issues. And that includes any products that you have on your own site or third-party sites. So that means that your business model has to be to where you can only sell support or updates. So they're, really sticking to that. The one thing that I get concerned about is, and if you remember the episode of Mastermind FM where they had somebody on talking about some of the shady things that were going on inside the theme review team, is you don't want other people who are theme authors tanking other theme authors. So yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out. I think it's good overall to say here are some themes that you can trust instead of, because I think a lot of people just scroll through the repo randomly and just grab whatever. So I think it's good overall.
What do you reckon, Adam? What do you? First of all, Adam, would you quickly like to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Sure. Hey, everybody. It's Adam from WPCrafter.com. And this story actually kind of feeds into the next one, if we actually do the next one that I was requesting, which was on some content that I created where, okay, you got to take this in context of what we're going to talk about next, is that I don't understand why a theme developer's going to be kicking in so many themes anyway. I mean, that I really believe is the old way of WordPress, having all these individual specific themes that are locked into a certain style. When I read this article, before I knew we were even going to talk about it, I read it through that lens that, I think there's an issue with theme developers just kicking out a theme a week, you know what I mean? And sticking it in there. Like, are you really going to be committed to a theme a week, or all this large volume of themes? Isn't that doing it more of a disservice to the people that actually use those themes? It's almost like theme spam. I guess that's a new term we're going to coin today, called the theme spam.
I love it. I think you created a new WordPress phrase.
Yes, I think that's kind of fascinating. I can't imagine being able to create a theme a week.
Well, no. But see, here's what happens. The theme you put in this week is blues and some pictures of people jumping up and cheering. The theme next week has some greens and maybe a picture in the background of a college. The theme next week, and it's the same theme, but there's these minor little tweaks to it. It's a real thing.
I suppose it is. And you do see, people who sell themes, and there've been, I remember Rebecca Gill talking about, the reason that she set up her theme so that, she was marketing this one as a lawyer theme and this one as a theme for a physical therapist or whatever, was that she found that ordinary people really had trouble understanding the idea that you can put whatever pictures you want in there. And any theme can be a lawyer theme or a physical therapist theme or whatever theme that somehow, that doesn't, it doesn't click for people. I do think that, referring to what you say, having a theme that you can adjust and that's flexible and that you're not, people aren't likely to change their themes every week, it probably makes more sense. But I also think that, if you create a theme that really is nothing much, it's not going to be popular. That is, although historically, there's been some great popularity among themes that have, horrible bloat. Which I think just goes to show you that people have no idea how to choose themes and are susceptible to the marketing speak of the developers.
Well, it's kind of like your inbox, right? You wake up in the morning, you turn your computer on, and how many messages do you have to sort through that you just hit delete? It doesn't really get your attention, but it's there. It's irritating. It's going to come regardless, and you just, it's just more of something that just kind of gets in the way. And I think if a theme developer is putting more than 3 themes in the theme directory, it's just adding clutter that I don't think needs to be.
Do you mean more than 3 themes at once? Or yes, probably. But if you're saying, oh, well, this person submitted a theme in 2010 and another one in 2011 and another one in 2012. WordPress changes, themes need to change. So, that I think is not spammy at all. That's just recognizing that the theme you built back then, while it was a good theme, is not going to, is not going to be a good theme anymore because it doesn't have, it doesn't have featured images or widgets or, all those various things that people that WordPress has introduced over the years.
Yes, you're actually right on that point for sure.
What do you reckon, Chris?
I'll just share a short story. Lifter LMS is a free plugin. When we launched that on the repo, it took 2 days to be approved. At that same time, we were going to, or I can't remember if it was the same time or not, but we were going to launch our theme, which is called Launchpad, for free in the WordPress theme directory. And they told us that the wait was 5 months for it to be approved. And so we pivoted. We decided to sell it and focus and do a completely different strategy. But having somebody provide free software and have to wait 5 months for approval is there's definitely a problem with the system. So I appreciate what they're working on in terms of kind of like a TSA pre-check. But I also think that Adam and Sally are saying, if you're going to have a proper software product, you can't be cranking out a new one every week. If that's the case, you're exploiting some kind of efficiency gap, which isn't really a value gap. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there. I don't think that's really feasible to just do theme spam, which I like that word. I'm glad you coined that, Adam. Quality over quantity. And also, I just wanted to pose the question, because I don't particularly understand it. What is the problem with demo content? The author was talking about problems with demo content. Does anybody know like what problems are going on in the WordPress ecosystem with themes and demo content?
I think I don't know all the intricacies, but I think it has to deal with the thumbnail image you choose for your theme in the WordPress repository for your theme. So you've got to be able to, the user has to, there's this weird requirement that's very vague and not equally applied, where a user should be able to activate your theme and get to what you showed in that screenshot fairly easily without installing additional plugins. But it's a requirement that's not equally handed out. You've got plenty of themes that you have to, as soon as you activate it, it starts saying you got to add these plugins, and so it's already not meeting that requirement. But you've got other themes that it's like one or two mouse clicks, and they've got this beautiful site, and they're the ones that get targeted because of the competition.
Yeah, just to summarize, I just think, I understand what they're up to, but I really don't think this is I keep having to go at these people a little bit, but I don't mean to, but it just keeps coming up in the news feeds. I think they're really struggling with the volume and everything else, and they're trying, but this isn't gonna work.
You know what? I'm not cutting you off here. Actually, I did cut you off.
Please,
I'm not cutting you off. I think that what they're doing is actually backward. They should instead say, instead of if you've put 3 in and they're clean, we can let you just have a fast pass. Instead, they should say, you're only allowed to put 3 in, period. So make them the very best that they can be. And that's the problem. People just toss junk in there, and it's just like, just putting as many feeders out there to see if one of them catches. That's all that some people actually do. And to what Chris was saying, you actually see the biggest theme span violators in ThemeForest that has like no rules. Like literally, if you look at a theme and then you look at that developer's portfolio of themes, they're all the same theme with different colors, different rounded edges. That's all that it is, because of the way that market is as well. Anyways, I know I go in different directions.
No, you're right. And there's that route, and I gave some advice on air to them that I just thought, this separation from free and Premier, I thought it was totally artificial anyway. But then they're definitely refusing to go down that route. So I charge, if it's a truly free, open source, open community theme, there should be a section for those. And for your more commercial Premier themes, they should be charged for the review. And then they get, if they pass certain security and coding and accessibility requirements, they get 5 stars and they get a sticker, and everybody's happy, aren't they? But no, that ain't going to happen. So I don't know why I repeated that. There we go. That's me. So on to the next. We didn't know when you were going to join us, actually, Adam, so we bumped your story down to number 3, but let's do it now. Let's go for it. So you got how to choose a WordPress theme, 7 questions to ask. What's this about, Adam?
Okay, well, I'm glad that we were actually, you guys are willing to talk about this on the show today, and it's actually a perfect segue right now into it. So
actually, before you start, Adam, we've had, if you look at the other episodes of our roundtable, we've had discussions about this before, Adam.
The concept.
We trade where others fear to trade, Adam.
Yeah. Well, then we all have something in common here, because I certainly not making a lot of friends in this video or this other video that I'm not going to bring up that I released yesterday. That aside, this was a video I've been wanting to put together, and I thought about it for a month. Because I knew how I felt. I knew that I felt that it's probably it's in most people's best interest to go this one path. But I didn't know how to communicate that. And so this actually took me a month of random thinking throughout the month to come together. And the basis of this article, but it's also more a video where everything's visually demonstrated, your options of going this route or that route. It's all visually demonstrated. The point is, the bigger picture is technology changes. So I posed the question of, how many cell phones have you owned in the last 6 years? How many computers have you owned in the last 6 years? And would you today choose to use the cell phone or the computer you used 6 years ago? And the point is that cell phone will work, that computer will work, but it's not the best. It's not a modern tool. It's not the tools of today. It's not the technology of today, because technology changes. And so that's kind of where the whole basis of the whole video and the questions come into play. And I mainly target themes that do things the old way. That's first, having your theme options not be in the customizer. And the benefit of the customizer is you get that immediate visual feedback, right? I can change the size of a font. I can know if I like it, how it looks with everything. Boom, I can go to the next one, versus changing it, saving it, updating it, refreshing it, then going back and doing it over and over again. And then I go into page builders as well, not to go the route of a theme that is bundled with a page builder, and then even worse, if it's a back-end page builder and demonstrating that same concept. Sure, you can get it done, but you don't get that immediate visual feedback. And really, what I'm trying to show people is that there are other options. It's easy to get into an echo chamber where it's all I've used for 6 years, and I don't know anything else, and there mustn't be a better way because this way works. And that the point is, that's okay. You could choose to go that route. It's totally fine. But there are other things out there. There are other things out there.
The Jerusalem. So thanks for that. I just want to quickly pass comment on a couple of things you said, and then I want to throw it over to the rest of the panel, see what they say, and then we'll wander back to you, Adam, in a second. I agreed with most of the things that you said in the video and your write-up. My only personal problem with it, and is the customizer, because I despise the customizer. I really do, always have done. I think it's the most clunky bit of interface design made in a long while, and I've always despised it. I think the other points you made are points that other people and myself have made about choosing themes, and it is quite strange how things end up. What do you reckon, Chris?
I don't despise the customizer. I do think that it was a moment where people had to deal with a lot of change. And when we built our theme, Launchpad, we were like a minute early, and we built it all out right before the customizer rolled out. So we have the back end settings, but that's why one of the reasons why I'm always happy to promote a theme like Astra that has amazing customizer settings. And it's just newer school, especially when they're focused exclusively on a theme. But going back to Adam's article, he made a lot of great points. Some of my favorite points were not being bloated, which in this world where plugins are really for functionality, themes are for base design, and then page builders come in for layout and fancy design. The job of the theme is it has never been more consolidated. So it can do, if it does a few things well, that's the theme of 2018 going forward, and has easy integration with things like page builders and plugins, and just gives you that base foundation to build the site on. But I also know that there's a lot of people out there. That's the number one question we get at our business, a WordPress product company, Lifter LMS, is which theme do you recommend? And I like how Adam positioned he positioned three that are really popular right now: Ocean WP, Astra, and Generate Press, which are great themes that are new school. It's like a total new way of doing themes. And I think that gives people a solid example, because there's so much decision fatigue. And I see so many projects fail to launch because they get in this like design vortex and theme shopping infinity loop. And all of a sudden 3 years have passed. And it's just a huge problem in the online business or website ecosystem. So Adam's points of go with people you trust, like who's behind this product, avoid the bloat, go for integration. Here's 3 options, pick one. I think it's a very timely article and a great resource to have out there. What do you reckon, Sally?
Well, I have to admit, that number one.
No.
This is my actual cell phone. It is a $15 flip phone.
For those of you listening, I didn't say it early on. I liken the old school themes, the original ones from 6 years ago, to using a cell phone versus using a smartphone. And Sally just showed us her fancy modern flip phone. How old is it?
A couple of years, because I had to replace my previous one. I am not a smartphone person, not because I don't think smartphones do cool things, but because basically if I want to use a computer, I want to use a computer. My feeling about cell phones has not changed. They are for making outgoing calls in emergencies. I don't want people pestering me at all hours of the day or night. My husband is glued to his smartphone, day, night, and on dates. However, I did not find a single thing to disagree with in Adam's video. I really, couldn't see why he said it was controversial. And because that's like, stuff I've heard at WordCamps about how to choose a theme for years, that it shouldn't have plugins bundled into it because of all the issues. It shouldn't have bloat. It shouldn't have like so much stuff that you're insanely confused. It should use a customizer because the WordPress core team has pushed the customizer since they launched it. That's now a requirement for new themes going into the repo. So there was nothing unusual there. I mean, my irritation was mainly, my God, I had to listen to a 45-minute video to, get these, 7 points I could have read in 10 minutes in an article.
You have a write-up underneath it. That's why.
Well, I didn't see a very detailed write-up at the time I looked at it.
Yeah. I just want to disappoint Adam before I go to John and get his response, and then we go back to Adam. I've got to disappoint Adam. I thought most of what you said was totally right, but I don't think there was anything controversial about it, really.
Well, here, let me add to where that it does get controversial. Whenever
I'm disappointed, Adam.
It's one thing to have someone go to a WordCamp and give a talk to 30 or 40 people. It's another thing when you have an audience of 53,000 subscribers and you're putting it out there and it stays out there and you're kind of calling out thousands of developers, thousands of themes, and saying this probably isn't a good decision for you. That's where it gets a little iffy and scary because it's a dangerous world out there when people's, let's just say on my channel, I've created a lot of haters that really think they really hate my guts. Let's just put it that way. So that's where it's controversial. Whenever
I'm sorry, Adam. I think you need to go and get a therapist, mate. You know, you're very likable. No, let's go. I think you've got problems, mate.
maybe it's just 5 people, and I see them over and over again with their fake accounts.
Well, you know, isn't YouTube notorious for a lot of trolls and haters and
I think you're
stirring things up? It's, you know, I've heard terrible things about comments on YouTube.
Post-traumatic stress. I think you're suffering from
Okay,
YouTube.
let's see. Okay, here, let me read a comment that came in 2 hours ago.
I'm just going to allow it for you to do this. I'm good.
Okay, I actually haven't read the whole thing. I just read the first sentence earlier. It says, because I started talking about page builders, and I said, this guy says, the page builder will save you 10 times faster than coding without using it. Kidding? ? Come on. I've used page builders many times, and it takes more time than writing the HTML code and add styles. And you see, I think I piss off is developers.
I don't know why, because
I don't get it either, but they get all like, I got to be careful what I say.
They think their jobs are threatened. You know, the thing is, working with some page builders, like, Visual Decomposer, yeah, you could totally, if you know the code, you could totally write the code faster and easier and understanding better what you're doing than it does that. But, a good page builder does make things faster, even for developers. And if you are actually any good at being in business, your job is not going to go away because these things exist.
Yeah, well, kind of. There we go. But it is what it is. So it's obvious where we're going. So, yeah. But I think you're taking too much notice of these YouTube trolls, really. I think you just want, there you go, Adam. Go see your therapist. He'll sort you out, or she. John, John, what did you think?
Well, I watched Adam's video, and I agree with a lot of what he's saying. A lot of the most popular themes, like Avada, like Jupyter, Enfold, they're full of a bunch of stuff that most people don't need for their build. The reason why they're popular is because people who are DIYs, they're going to build their site themselves because they have more time than money. They see all the fancy stuff and it's on the first page, so they just buy it. So it perpetuates. And a lot of smaller agencies and freelancers do the same thing. They'll build sites for, $1,000 or $2,000. And they'll use these themes, these $59 themes that are filled with everything in the kitchen sink to build stuff out. But a lot of good themes, like the ones that Adam highlighted in his video, like GeneratePress, like Astra, that are not bloated and don't require you to load, 6 plugins just to make it work. They're gaining some popularity among developers thanks to, people that like Adam that sing their praises, but I think they're never going to be as big as some of the most popular themes on ThemeForest, like X theme, that in my opinion are not that great. They're kind of trash. So
yeah, it's just that ThemeForest has just got so much juice with Google. If you do
well, and face it, markets everywhere have popularized a lot of stuff that's trash, and that's kind of how it works. And it's a thing one has to live with. It is not necessarily the better product that succeeds so much as the better marketer.
I do want to point out growth numbers, and we can, I guess, end this out. I'm sure you were going to anyway, John.
Yeah.
I think it was yesterday, Astra had its 12-month or 1-year birthday, and they have 60,000 active installations, and it's just the beginning. That's pretty huge, and I know they're a success. Ocean WP is close to hitting 100,000 active installations, and I think most of that is free users, though. I mean, it is a financial success for the developer, but that's in about maybe 13 months or 14 months. So these guys are growing like really, really fast, and I'm happy for them, because here's the last piece of advice I will give anyone. Choose one theme, one page builder, master them, and use them for everything. Don't keep jumping and hopping from this tool to that tool. And I think people are finally figuring that out. And it's also a lot cheaper, too, and a lot faster to develop stuff.
But you're always better off not chasing the shiny. But of course, one can take that then to the extreme that you start out with of, well, I'm still using my, my brick phone from 1990 because, well, I know how to use it and it works. Mm-hmm. So somewhere in there is a balance between discovering a new thing that really is going to make your life easier, even if there's a bit of a learning curve, and, chasing every new shiny toy that appears.
Oh, and the thing that John said, the only thing I would disagree with what John said was that when he said that they're using, one of the agencies are using these themes, and then I think you said charging like a couple of thousand. No, they're not. They're charging like 6,000 to 10,000. Because I've been called in to, me and my team have been called in, and I've asked clients, who made this and what was you charged, and your jaw drops because you're partially right, John, but also
that's a perfect segue into the next story. But it's true, maybe we can discuss this in the next story as well. But yes. Believe me when I say there are people charging way more than you are for way less and getting it.
I wish I would. I'm crying there. I'm going to go for our break, folks, and when we come back, we're going to delve into some other stories. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back, folks. We're being controversial. Adam's going to go and see his therapist. He's been looking at these YouTube trolls too long, mate. They're getting to him. I'm
a fallible human being.
Yeah, we always kind of it is what it is, isn't it? But here we go. On to the next story. Are WordPress developers really cheaper to hire? Who wants to start off with this one? Come on.
I can jump in.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question because there's just so much variability. You can go buy a WordPress website for $5 on Fiverr, or you can, hire somebody to build it who charges $200 to $400 an hour. Or you can go with a package that's $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $100,000, or $50. So there's a lot of, there's just so much variability in this space. I think the article, I was actually disappointed in the article because it was really focused on just Drupal and Joomla, not really the greater developer ecosystem. And, where there are some interesting, certain specialties are in higher demand. But coming back to WordPress, I think the biggest problem here has to do with a lot of confusion out there, the difference between a developer, a designer, and an implementer. And that's on all sides. That's the people who are selling services and what they think they are. It's what the customer that's actually buying the website thinks they need. And it has to do with like how people structure packages and discover what kind of business problems they're supposed to be solving with the website. There's so much confusion and mismanagement of those core roles in the process that it's almost makes it impossible to talk about how much something costs. Because the reality is for most buyers of websites and website services, if you pay too little, you're usually going to regret the decision. You're better off paying like 4 times as much to get it done, 10 times as fast by the right person. And yet there's still other people out there, like we were talking about, who are price gouging at, they're selling something at a premium. It doesn't matter necessarily how it's made. But the fact that the client ends up with a website that, breaks easily or can't be supported easily, or that client or the website provider like kind of vanishes after the service is done, and now they end up looking for a freelancer to help put Humpty Dumpty back together again. There's so much problems. There's so many problems around this. But at the end of the day, I think the article made a few key points, which are the average cost of a decent WordPress developer is $30 an hour. I think it was actually $29 an hour. But you can also pay less and you can also pay more. So it's really hard to piece that together. But I also don't want to undervalue the value of a good WordPress implementer who knows how to put plugins, themes, page builders, and stuff together to solve business problems and never write a line of code. That is a solid skill set that is almost more valuable, in my opinion, than a developer who can just write code but doesn't really know how to interface with the business owner about what they need. So there's a ton of issues around this topic, but those are my 2 cents.
Yeah, you've put it so well, actually, Chris. That they were my own thoughts, because I thought some of the things of the article, it was a bit crappy, but on other things it started a thought process, and I totally. What do you reckon, Sally?
Well, this was interesting to me because it actually contained some detail and research, which is not what we've seen coming out of Torque very often lately. But you do also kind of have to look at some of these things in their sources. So, WP Engine had done this investigation, and it says, when you look at these freelancer rates across the U.S., right, with an average of $29 an hour, note that it says source, elance.com. Many years ago, I tried Elance and I left almost immediately because it is a race to the bottom in terms of pricing. The aim is always, it's the low bid that gets the job. And so, if as a freelancer, you actually want to earn enough to live on, you don't use Elance. So that may be a little lower, but, there have been surveys done within WordPress about what you charge. And it does seem, and they looked at a few other sites. I think the codable rates of, $60 an hour plus for somebody who's, either a very skilled implementer or a reasonably competent developer, that's actually getting into what might be an appropriate rate. So it seems to me that, if you are at the low end of that, and you are not, living in a country with a low cost of living, you're really going to be in trouble, and you are dramatically undercharging. But the hilarious thing at the end, I mean, pretty much what the author comes down to is well, it's hard to say whether WordPress developers are necessarily, cheaper than Joomla developers or Drupal developers on an hourly rate, but that, with the Drupal developers, you have a higher percentage of people doing enterprise sites or government sites or sites with, complexity and big budget. But, his ending line is, if you want to maximize your earning potential, you may want to consider learning Drupal. And that just kind of snarked me off. It's like, dude, I am a freelancer and I have worked on $50,000 plus websites that weren't actually for large corporations. If you are, if you want to maximize your earning potential, raise your rates and pick better clients. It's not that Drupal is terrible and you shouldn't learn it, but mastering Drupal in order to earn more money, if you have bad business practices, is not the thing to do. You need to improve your business practices.
I've got one thing to say about that advice to people that is that you must have paid discovery. It doesn't have to be an enormous amount of money, but it sorts the tire kickers from people. I'm very approachable. Chris is very approachable. I think all the people on this panel are very approachable. and I'm prepared to have a chat with a 15 half-hour chat with anybody. But after that, if they want further discussion, further delving into my experience and knowledge, it's paid discovery basically. And if they're not up for that,
right,
they need to go and find somebody else, don't they?
Well, and the thing is, if you work with people who are truly professionals or with companies that are, established enough, they pay consultants in other areas of their business a chunk of change to come in, talk to people, evaluate things, and make recommendations. Those people aren't implementing this. They're paying them for their expertise and their ability to bring, a fresh eye to a situation and look at stuff and tell them what they need. Paying for discovery is not actually an unusual thing to those people. And it's much better. And we had an article that was, a potential post for us to discuss last week from Tora Dean about, running a WordPress business and, one of the things he points out is, do paid discovery workshops that really, if you want to make good money, you have to do this. And Jonathan is absolutely right that it's, if somebody is really not serious about their business and their website as part of their business, they're going to balk at the discovery, and you'll know that these are going to be clients who are trying to nickel and dime you, and you're going to tear your hair and not make any
well, it's
money.
not only that, it's for the benefit of the client, because they normally, unless they're very experienced in getting,
they often have no idea what
they give an outline in an email or Word document to the best of their ability, but that they approach different people, and those people, without a detailed request for a proposal document which lays out all the functionality that's required for this new project, at best they're just going to get educated guesses from people that they are asking for quotes from. At worst, they're just going to get informed guesses, and what happens is halfway through the project, the developer either disappears because they are on a death march to bankruptcy, so they stop answering email and they just literally disappear, or they have that unpleasant discussion with the client. I need 3,000 plus more to get this site completed. It's either those two paths, and I can't tell you how many projects I've taken over where it's either the person's literally just freaking disappeared off the face of the earth, or they've gone and asked the client for a substantial. And why that happens is that there's no detailed discovery process at the beginning. So it was all based on guesswork anyway.
I think this all goes back to, I'm glad Chris started it, because it all goes back to what Chris was saying at the very beginning. Like, who are you? Are you the guy that says, okay, I'll build you a website? Or are you the guy that says, what's your problem? Tell me your problem. I'm going to give you a solution to that problem. Those are two different people. And I think what feeds into this is actually an impossible argument or a question to answer, who gets paid more, blah, 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 because the two people I just described are two totally different people. A developer, typically, when I think of a developer, you might think of something else when you hear the word developer. I think someone that might not have the best communication skills, sales skills, solution solving skills. They're just some guy that says, is waiting for someone to tell them what to do, and then they do it and they say, here it is, versus the guy that says, no, you tell me what your problem is. I want to hear it in detail. What do you want this to accomplish? Why do you want a website in the first place? And then craft a solution around that. And that's a totally different person.
Yeah. What do you reckon, John? What do you reckon I've just said? Do you think I was just waffling, or there was any truth in what I was saying?
Yeah, so definitely there's two types of people when you're talking about WordPress developers. Where do they fit in to earning potential. There's one group where you're working for either an agency or an organization, or you're subcontracting to somebody, and in that regard, you're gonna fit into a range of salary. You're gonna be capped at a certain point, and you can get what you can negotiate, but you're not going to. You're going to be in a range, and when it comes to that, I think Drupal people probably earn a little bit more. But what I want to address is kind of the people who are either freelancing, or they're running a small agency, or they're self-employed, they're working for themselves. And when it comes to that, I agree with what Sally said previously. I see so many people that are focused on servicing clients that are not going to be able to sustain their business. They're going after mom and pop shops, or trying to upsell WordPress to everybody and talking about Gutenberg and plugins and WordPress, and you need to just cut that out completely. I've only had one client in 6 years ever ask me specifically for WordPress. Clients do not care what you build the website on. They only care that it works, that it's easy for them, and that it's going to help them make money. That's it.
End of story, isn't it, John?
Yep.
That when it comes to the bottom line, I totally agree with you, John. That's all they care about, isn't it?
Yep.
And they've got every right. That's what it's supposed to do, isn't it? Right, I think we go on to we've got another 5-6 minutes before I wrap this up, or maybe 10 minutes. On to the next thing. I think we did ultimate checklist of SEO migration. Just a quickie, John, about this. I think it can be a slightly bigger job than, depending on the size of the website. And if you don't get it right, it can get pretty ugly, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times you'll run into this if you're migrating somebody from another platform into WordPress, or whatever the case is. The biggest things that you got to look at are making sure that you have your old URLs mapped to your new ones. So making sure that you have 301 redirects in place. The biggest thing beyond that is keeping an eye on Google Search Console, making sure that no ones slip through the cracks, because a lot of these sites you'll sometimes find that they've had different iterations of the site over time, or they have backlinks built out on other sites that they've completely forgotten about. And beyond that, the same thing goes if you're migrating from HTTP to HTTPS, making sure that you're doing any type of migration during a slow period. Don't do it in the middle of the work week, anything like that. Make sure you're coordinating, if you're moving from one host to another, make sure you're coordinating the email migration. And again, making sure your dev site is blocked from crawling. I've seen people have their dev sites indexed. You don't want to do that. The
reason why I brought it up is because in the summer, you got Google that's going to start penalising if you don't have HTTPS, and I think a lot of this is going to start rearing its head. And a bit hiring somebody to have a site audit and doing a bit of pre-planning will save. If you've got a medium to large website, it's going to save you a lot of pain, because there's nothing worse than having to try and sort this out and it's just been done without any planning. That's the worst of all scenarios, and it's pretty ugly. It can get pretty ugly. On to the next thing. Let's talk with Sally's. Put this one again, and we discussed it last week, and they added a bit, didn't they, Sally? I know you remarked on the on it. WordPress page builds review, Beaver Builder, Divi Builder, WP Bakery page builder, and now they've added Elementor, and that's from
By
WP.
popular demand, because I was not the only person to object that they hadn't covered it, given its enormous popularity and growing feature set, and they had come down very firmly, out of the page builders they reviewed, very firmly on the side of Beaver Builder, and so but what they said when they reviewed Elementor was basically, wow, there are some really amazingly cool things in here. There are a few places where it seems a little buggy, but it's it's an extremely strong contender. And I'm, that seems to be about the conclusion that I had reached doing research on page builders, and I know the Beaver Builder people better, but I am about to start using Elementor on a site and really looking forward to getting to know it.
It's pretty cool. What do you? I think Adam. I think we're taking Divi out of it, and I've been trying to get them on the show, and I was going to have a discussion with them, and then they bailed out of the discussion. So I don't know how I upset the Divi people, but there we go. But excluding Divi, because the two leaders at the present moment do seem to be Beaver Builder, Elementor, doesn't it, Adam? Really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think. Well, actually, the real leader is Divi in sense of sales. And actually, I was surprised when you said that they were going to come on the show, because they don't actually do any shows at all, ever. So that's why I was surprised. I wonder if some information got mixed up. I think these tools are actually great. That they're all competing against each other. And I was thinking about it yesterday, because Divi said they're going to be basically implementing all these features that Elementor just came out with. And Elementor came out with those features because Beaver Builder came out with it. And so what you see is the free market working for the user right now with these three companies, meaning they're all pushing each other forward. So who ends up benefiting? Their user base. So all the people that were using Elementor anyway, they got to benefit from these new enhancements that came out. Now the hundreds of thousands of Divi users, they're going to get to benefit as soon as they roll out that same feature set in Divi. It's really, I was actually really happy to see this, that the user in this three-way competition is the one that's actually winning at the end of the day.
I think that's a great point. Just the free market economics, just some healthy competition is good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. Unfortunately, in so many areas, we don't have that, do we?
Internet service providers, anyone?
I'm off to my therapist now. I think we're going to wrap the show up now, folks. We've covered a few things, and and hopefully you enjoyed the show and join us next week. So let's start with Adam. Adam, how do people find out more about what you're up to, Adam?
You can check out the website, WPCrafter.com, or if you want to head straight on over to YouTube, where most of the content goes, it's youtube.com/WPCrafter. There's a couple new videos each week, and there's some really good stuff there right now. Well, yes. Always, but
really excellent material. You're rock and rolling, Adam. Sally, how do people find out more about you?
You can find me at WPFangirl.com. You can find the meetup at eastbaywp.com. I am at Sally Getch on Twitter. And if you can spell my name, you'll find me all over the place, because I am unique in Google.
And Chris, how can people find out more about what you're up to, Chris?
If you're an online course membership site builder, check us out at lifterlms.com. And we also have a podcast around the topic called LMScast.
And you have an active Facebook group as well, don't you?
Very active, yep.
Yeah,
and you can find that, just search for Lifter LMS VIP, and you'll find that Facebook group. We just crossed 3,000 members.
That's great. And John, how can people find out about you?
You can find me at my website, which is lockdowndesign.com. You can also check out my YouTube channel. Just go on YouTube and search for Lockdown Design. How do people get a hold of you, Jonathan?
Oh, thank you for asking, John. And how people can find out about, just go to the WP-Tonic website. We've got a load of information around learning management systems, membership sites. That's what our support specialises in. We're a WordPress support and maintenance company and a developer. We develop as well, but we specialise in learning management systems and membership websites. And we'll see you next week where we have another great roundtable show and be controversial, whatever. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye.
Bye.
Good go. Oh.